Okay, there we go. Get it back. There we are. All right. So for the first part, again, of Canvas Workshop 5 is going to be looking at different external tools. If you're following along in Canvas 101, what we did is we took the last 2 modules of Canvas 101 and just combined them together because 5 is honestly pretty short compared to the material in 6. So they can kind of just fit together, and that way we only have 5 workshops. In 5, we got this list of tools that we're going to be looking at. So here is the list here. And what I'd like to know is just, are any of those tools familiar to you up front? Do you already know what any of these do?
I've used Turnitin.
Okay.
I use Kaltura and Integrity.
Okay, so you use both Kaltura and Integrity. And that was Kelly saying that, right?
Yes.
All right, so Barbara's used Turnitin, Kelly's used the first 2. What about the other 4?
I have not used any of the others that I know of.
Oh, okay, that's fair. You might have like oopsed your way into them. That's fine. What about you, Kelly?
No, I haven't used the other ones.
All right, cool. Well, since none of us know all of them, we'll definitely talk about all of them. So, Kelly, if you don't mind, how would you explain Kaltura Integrity to someone that's never used it before?
I just use it for, I use Integrity for most of my section lectures, and then I use Kaltura for another lecture that helped me bring in things like YouTube and things.
Okay, yeah, so you're using them to record yourself speaking with like a PowerPoint, right?
Yeah, speaking with PowerPoints.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so Kaltura and Integrity do really, really similar things. They both can record a combination of your screen, your face if you want, and your voice. And then if you like play a video on your screen, that would get picked up as well. A lot of instructors use it for recording lectures, for recording demonstrations, things like that. And honestly, they are really similar as far as services go. There is also the potential that Integrity could be going away because they both do the same thing now, which means that we might just have Kaltura. And if that happens, then we'll be looking at processes to move everyone's Integrity videos over for them. That way they don't have to do it themselves. But let's just go ahead and demo both just so you can kind of see the differences, Barbara. So for both of these, I'm going to be turning them on in a course by going to Settings. So let me go to a fake course where it's okay to do this. And I'm going to go down to Settings, all these cute little puppies. And in Settings, I'm going to look at this row across the top of my screen. I'm going to choose Navigation. And here is where I can turn on a lot of these tools. So you can see I've got both of my Kaltura tools up here as well. Integrity's right here. All I'd want to make sure is that if Integrity is in the bottom section, I want to drag it to the top section and click Save, like you probably have seen in other workshops. All right, so when I go to Integrity, if this were a real class, I would actually get a screen here that would let me start a recording. I'm not in a real class, so this doesn't work for me. But you, with your real classes with actual students, when you go to this link, that'll give you options like view the videos, make a recording, things like that. How I tend to get to Integrity, honestly, is I'll just go directly to the website. So I'll open up a new tab in my browser, and I'll go to nku.integrity.com. If I can type this morning, let's find out. Yeah, that's nku.integrity.com, not integrity.nku.edu, which is what I tried many, many, many times, and we get frustrated. But if I load nku.integrity.com, I can sign in with my account information with NKU. And I can wait for it patiently to load. And now I'm going to see a list of all of the courses that I'm technically listed as an instructor in. So this is another way to manage and access all of your videos. All right. Again, there's a good chance that this could be going away in favor of just keeping Kaltura, but I wanted to point out that it's an option for the moment.
So this is any video, even an external video, or just videos that you have made?
No, any video. So if you got like something you ripped off the DVD, that's fine too.
Okay.
Yeah. Now for the option that I think will be staying around Kaltura, it's really, really similar. You go to Settings, and you enable the Kaltura links, you can see I've got 2 links enabled in my course navigation. The one I have to have enabled is Kaltura My Media. So that one must be enabled if you want to use Kaltura. The other one you have as an option is Kaltura Media Gallery. And the only reason you'd enable Kaltura Media Gallery is if you want to have a link in your course navigation with all of the videos for your course in one spot. So if that's how you prefer to organize videos, then enable Kaltura My Media Gallery. If that's not what you do, don't worry about it. Just pretend it doesn't exist. You just need Kaltura My Media. So if you go to Kaltura My Media, then you can also record Kaltura videos or upload Kaltura, or upload any DVD. You can also add YouTube videos to this list. So I just clicked Kaltura My Media. I'm going over to this Add New option on the right, and I can see Media Upload where I get that DVD, YouTube, and then Capture Space Lite is how you'd actually record your screen. And so that is a little application you'll install. I can click it now. If you go to Capture Space Lite, it will always come up with the screen, even if you've installed already, so just keep that in mind. If you've installed, then the recorder will pop up over the screen that we're looking at and let you start recording. And you can record some of your screen or all of your screen. That's fine. But once you have videos, I'm going to go back to Kaltura My Media. They're all going to show up in this list. They're searchable, and you can even build them as playlists. Hey, it's Mike. Welcome, Mike. Oh, he lost his mic. Mike lost his microphone. Sorry. So, Mike, could you throw in chat if you can hear me or not? All right, Mike is a little, oh, there we go. Now he's got a microphone. Yeah, Mike, just let me know if you can hear me, okay? Here, I'll chat him just in case he's not able to connect and hear my audio. Oh, great, cool. Thanks, Mike, for letting me know. I appreciate it. All right, so Mike, we were just talking about the Kaltura recording tool. If you haven't used it before, it's just a quick way to record yourself and your screen, and that way you can record a lecture or record a demonstration. And what we talked about is just enabling Kaltura My Media in your course navigation as a way to make that recording. So once you have these videos here, one of the cool things that Kaltura does that Tegrity doesn't do, that's actually made me kind of switch to be a Kaltura fan, is this thing called video quiz. What's neat about it is you can take any video that you have in this Kaltura list here, and you can actually build a quiz into it. So you can have it set points, specific questions pop up in the middle of the video that a student has to answer. And if the student doesn't finish the video, they don't get all the questions. And you can even have the score they get on that quiz affect their final grade. So you can actually sort of assess whether they're truly paying attention to the whole video the whole time. And to do that, you just click Add New under Kaltura My Media and choose Video Quiz. And you can upload a new video just for it, or you reuse one of the existing videos that you have. So I could pick this, this video right here. Now, it's not as robust a quiz engine as Canvas's actual quiz stuff, but it does do multiple choice, true, false. It'll let you randomize, and it gives you a lot of help here. Some basic controls. At the bottom, you can see sort of when you're talking. So if you're talking through a presentation and you stop talking between slides, you can really easily see down here when you stop talking. So you can drop a question in between audio instead of in the middle of a sentence, for instance. I talked pretty continuously throughout this video because I didn't plan on any interruptions. So that would be a little more difficult here. But if I click Start, then I can go ahead and see the types of questions based off where my cursor is, and I can have multiple choice. since we're using the free one, it looks like multiple choices. That's the only one that I have right now. But I can, drop, 3 or 4 or 5 questions throughout this whole thing. And that just becomes an assignment like anything else. All right, so I have a bunch of videos under Kaltura My Media, and I might want to share those videos with students now. We've already talked about the media gallery as one way of doing that. Another way of doing it is pretty much anywhere that you get an editing box. So I'm going to go to announcements, for instance. And I am just going to make a new announcement. So there's a new announcement. And I've got my little editing window. So right here, I've got this Embed Kaltura media video. Since I've added some other tools, I don't see the starburst right away. In your course, you'll probably actually see this little starburst symbol where I have this down arrow. So this is the Embed video button, and you just want to put your cursor where you want the video to show up. Go to that Embed Kaltura media button, and then it's going to show you a list of all of your videos that you've added to Kaltura. And you can scroll through. You can type across the top and search for a particular one. So I don't have any that start with SCREE. That's fine. But then once I find the video I want to use, like let's use this one, I can just click select over here on the right. And now it's embedded in this announcement for me. And in my opinion, I think this part's also a little easier than sharing integrity videos, because you don't have to like run and find a link and paste the link or grab the embed code and mess with the HTML. You can just click that little Kaltura button and then just drop the video right on the content page or right on an announcement, or even in like a quiz question. So are there any questions about Kaltura that I can talk about, or integrity for that matter?
If you have a quiz with the video, and you have the same, so all students get the same questions, is the student's answer then only, is it published or is it just in the student's record?
Oh, are you asking like if students can see other students' answers?
Right.
Oh yeah, no, they won't be able to do that, just like any other quiz.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. Any other questions? All right, that sounded like a no. One last thing with Kaltura integrity, if we're talking about like compliance and accessibility and ADA stuff, both Tegrity and Kaltura will have the ability to do captioning. Currently, Tegrity can actually generate captions where it will listen to what you said and then try to type out the words for it. Depending on your diction and depending on the kind of language you're using, like whether it's highly technical or not, that can actually be pretty accurate. Some people only have to change a few words, and other people have to change a whole lot. If you decided to use the automatic captioning, I would strongly encourage you to commit to double checking that captioning before you let a student see it. Please don't just use automatic captioning and let a student see it without any filter, because you don't know. You want to be 100% sure that you're okay with what the captions are going to say versus what's actually coming out of your mouth in the video. Kaltura will also soon support the ability to do captioning as well. All right, let me cancel that out. Okay, so we looked at Kaltura, Tegrity, and Barbara, you use Turnitin. So what do you use Turnitin for?
When students do research papers, to check their references, to check if they've copied it from other students.
Yeah, so you want to see if the work's theirs or not. And research papers are a pretty common use for it. So Turnitin replaces SafeAssign. We used to have both in Blackboard, but Blackboard owns SafeAssign, and Blackboard's going away. So Turnitin is the option we have now. To use Turnitin, all we need to do is go to an assignment. So let me do that. And in assignments here, let me just pick my best assignment. And this is actually what it looks like once Turnitin is set up. So once you turn on Turnitin for an assignment, this is what you'll see instead of that.
reason your screen's not moving from the create new announcement that you did before. I don't know if it's my side or your side.
Oh, weird. Here, I'll just stop and reshare to see if it sort of kicks it back. Okay. So let me do that. And let me do that. Did it change?
There's a message that says that you've started screen sharing.
Okay. And is it still on the announcement screen?
It's just a black screen now with saying that you started screen sharing.
Interesting. Yeah. So I guess Barbara, Mike, do you also see a black screen or do you see something different? It looks like Mike said that his worked okay. What about you, Barbara?
I can see.
Okay, so Kelly, maybe if you could just leave the room and hop back in, we could just pause for a moment, all right?
Sure.
Cool. We'll take a brief commercial break, everyone. All right, Kelly's coming back. All right, what do you see now, Kelly?
My best assignment.
Great, awesome, that's where we're at.
All right, thank you.
Definitely, yeah. And just to, for Mike and Barbara, of course, if something happens for your computers, I would much rather stop and get it working than leave you suffering in the back. So here is the Turnitin assignment. You can control the settings for your Turnitin assignment by going to settings right here on the right. So for instance, if you go down to optional settings and you want to control the threshold for when something gets marked as original or not, you can check off exclude small sources, and then you can choose how much needs to be copied before Turnitin flags it and tells you, which is something that Safe Assign couldn't do, which I'm a fan of. For instance, if it's less than 10% original or less than 10% copied, then I might not even care about it, because that could just be them actually quoting a book like they're supposed to. And I don't want every single quote that they're citing properly to get flagged. That's one option you have here. If you want to mess with how Canvas views the Turnitin assignment instead, you've got Edit Assignment Settings on the right. So I'm going to click that next. This takes us back to the screen that you're really used to with making other Canvas assignments. I'm going to finally fix my typo there. And to actually make an assignment into a Turnitin assignment, you want to come down to the submission type area. So where it says submission type, I'm going to click this little drop down. And out of the 4 options, I want external tool. From there, I just need to go down to this little link box. And you can type all this craziness out, but I'm lazy, so I click find. And I scroll down till I see Turnitin in this list. There it is. And now this is set up as a Turnitin assignment. This is something that will also be changing in the near future. Fortunately, this change only makes it easier, which is kind of nice. Instead of having to do external tool, there will just be a checkbox like right here above moderated grading that will say use Turnitin, and you'll just check that off, and this assignment will now use Turnitin. So if they're submitting a research paper through Canvas, you can just choose online and then check off the imaginary Turnitin box that'll be there soon. And that's just a little faster. For now, though, we're going to leave it as external tool for Turnitin. Any Turnitin questions?
No.
All right. All right, so let's go to the 4 that we haven't used. So Office 365, I'm going to politely disagree with. I will say you have been using it because you have an NKU email. So Outlook is part of Office 365. It's like this whole umbrella of services that you have. It's like there's like 20 different applications. But if you've never really looked at anything besides the email, then it can do a lot. Let me actually just pull up my email here. So what I did is I just typed in portal.office.com. That's portal.office.com. And that's how I'm getting to this screen here. But if you go there, it should take you to your email by default. I've changed mine around. In the upper left corner is this grid of 9 squares. And if you click that, you can see all these applications and services that they have available for you to use. So there's an online version of Excel, PowerPoint, Word if you want to work on documents and you want to collaborate, for instance. And students have all of this too. So pretty much anything you see here, your students can have access to for themselves as well. We also have OneDrive, which I guess is next in the long line of W drives and J drives and K drives and all that kind of stuff. OneDrive is the one I've worked with the most, just because I don't have to set it up like in the files of my computers, and I can access it everywhere, even without VPN. You get a full terabyte of storage, which is a whole lot of room. You would really have to commit to filling it up, or you'd have to be working with like raw video projects and like full video files or like full photo files from a camera that are still in the raw. But you have a whole lot of room in OneDrive to work with, and then you can access it on every device. In terms of what that means in Canvas, if you go to your settings again and then go to navigation again, Office 365 is another link you can enable. And if you do that, it'll just show you all of your files in Office 365. That way, instead of having to take a file from OneDrive and download it to your computer and then upload it to Canvas, you can just go directly from OneDrive to Canvas and save yourself that middle step, which can be really helpful. This link also works for students. So if students are working on papers or building projects and they need to submit those files, if you enable Office 365, then they can just access their OneDrive directly without downloading it to their computer and back up again. So it just makes it a little more efficient for everyone. All right, Respondus Lockdown Browser is next. And Respondus Lockdown Browser, I tend to see be used more by online instructors than face-to-face instructors, although I have seen some face-to-face instructors use it. The whole thing with a lockdown browser is you might be giving a test out, and you want to make sure that students can't access any websites or anything on their computer that you don't want them to during the test. Lockdown Browser is how you make sure that doesn't happen. So Lockdown Browser is another thing that you go to Settings and Navigation to enable. That's my theme for the day, Settings and Navigation. And you can see here I have Lockdown Browser. Please don't look for Respondus Lockdown Browser like I did many times, because you will get lost and not find it and then get upset. Respondus is the company that makes Lockdown Browser. Respondus also makes another program called Respondus, which leads to some confusion when faculty are talking about it. For this, we're talking about the thing that locks down tests. The other thing, Respondus, helps make tests, so it does something else. But if I go to Lockdown Browser here, then what I'm going to see is all of the quizzes that are currently set up in my class. I've got them all just listed, and for each quiz, I can see whether it uses Lockdown Browser or whether it uses the Respondus monitor, which is where it will actually record the student taking the test during the test. I can turn both of these on if I want, just by going to this drop-down arrow and clicking Modify Settings. Once I click Modify Settings, I need to at least enable the Lockdown Browser to use any of the other functionality of Lockdown Browser. So I turn on Lockdown Browser, and then I can set a password. You probably don't want to do that here. I can allow students to use an iPad app version of the Lockdown Browser instead of their computer. I can enable a calculator if I need to. Or if there are like certain websites that I know I want them to access, I can make that available as well. Once the Lockdown Browser is turned on, I can also turn on the Respondus monitor. And if I do that, then I see this little blurb here where it gives links for how students can prepare to use the monitor and where they can go to download the software for that. And then once I'm okay with that, I can decide what students have to show me as well. Some people get really hardcore and they'll make the students show an ID to prove it's them. They'll make them like pan the camera around the room just to make sure that there's nothing around the room or anything like that. You can go really hardcore with it. That being said, there's always a way to cheat if you want to. My favorite cheat is to take your notes and tape them to the camera itself, like right there where you can see my thumb really blurry. Because if it's just right beneath that, then the camera's never going to catch those notes. But there are people who have found that it does measurably lower the amount of cheating that happens during an online test. So that's an option that you have. And it all just happens here on the lockdown browser area. All right, let me go back to that list. All right, next in the list is Turning Point clickers. Honestly, I don't know that many people are going to use it. I see it get used the most by like the chemistry, biology, where they have big labs and they really need to pull like quantitative information. It's a way to do formative assessment during a class session. So you might be talking and giving a lecture, and then you might ask them a question with 4 options. With Turning Point clickers, the students can pull out their device, mark one of those options, and then on the screen behind you, it can show the results of how the class is answering in real time. It's a great way to quickly poll large groups of people just to make sure they're paying attention, make sure they're getting the content, or even questions like, do you feel comfortable with what we just talked about? Or do we need to go back and talk more about it? That's an easy way for people to say, yeah, I need to go back without feeling as awkward about raising their hand. Typically, this does involve the student buying or renting a separate device to use Turning Point. But if that's what you want to go for, it is definitely an option and instructors do use it. If you want to explore some free alternatives that you have access to. Oh, hey, Mike had a question. What about Monitor? I think I might have just answered it. Did you have any other questions about Respondus Monitor, Mike? Cool, awesome, Mike. So with the sort of free alternatives to Turning Point, one of them is called Polls, P-O-L-L-S, like go to the polls and vote. It is a free app that you have available. It's made by Canvas, the same company that does this. And with Polls, you can actually download it on your phone, and your students download it on their phones, and you can write a question really, really quickly right there. It's a very simple interface. So there's not a lot of like settings to configure. It's almost as fast as like texting someone. So just saying, type out a question on your phone or tablet, and it will pop up on their devices, and they can quickly answer right there too. The second option is called Socrative, and that's just how I say it. I've never actually been told how you're supposed to say it. It's like Socrates, so S-O-C-R-A-T, but then it ends with I-V-E, Socrative. And Socrative is another sort of official, it's a little more robust than Polls. It's another official like assessment tool where you can deploy questions and get that information back. And yeah, any questions about like formative assessments or polling software, Turning Point, things like that?
Nope.
All right. So with publisher content then, I'm talking about 2 separate things. One thing is all the files that you can get from a publisher, and thing 2 is sort of integrating publisher activities with your course overall. So if we're talking first about the files that you get from a publisher, you might be getting like a zip folder of test banks, or maybe all of the PowerPoints that they have, maybe a collection of quizzes that they've created. To use any of those, you're going to go to Settings. And once you're in Settings, on the right side, you want to choose Import Course Content. And then based off what you're getting from your publisher, where it says Content Type, you'll need to pick one of these. Often you can just use unzip a .zip into folder. That's a good one if it's just a bunch of PowerPoints. If they've given you a bunch of whole quizzes, you might need to use this qti.zip file. I don't know what QTI stands for, but I do think Q, quiz stuff. And oftentimes when I haven't been able to import something from a publisher any other way, qti.zip file has saved my butt and let me get some quizzes into a course. The third option you might end up using is Canvas export package itself. So if you see copy or Canvas course export package, that could work too. And the tip off for that is if the files that your publisher gives you end with .imscc. That's .ims, like Sierra, Charlie, Charlie. That is just the sort of unique proprietary format that Canvas works with. And so you'll just want to use Canvas export package as the type if that's the file that you're holding. So that's with the files that you can get from a publisher. For anything else that we're talking about from a publisher, you'll probably be going to Settings. And instead of navigation, I'm switching it up. I'm going to head over to apps. So I went to settings, and then to the right of navigation is apps. And here I'm going to get a list of all the different sort of plugins that I have available to put inside my course, and there's a lot of them. So if there's some that you use on your own, like Alex is one that I've seen people use for assessment. I've seen people use Atomic Learning as another one to sort of support what they're doing. If you do gamification and want to look at badging your course with the, like, micro-credentials, Badger is another one that does that. There's a whole lot in here. But there's also things from publishers like Connect and Cengage, McGraw-Hill, Sage is another one. And some of them we've already installed for you. So if you go to, well, this is a fake course, so it probably doesn't have it. But in a real course, I could go ahead and search. I would see a whole list for installed right there. Let me just search one now. There's Connect Ed, but that's not the one I'm thinking of. Okay, yeah, I knew I had more than that. So like Cengage is right there. That's one that I have. And what you'll probably do is with your sales rep, for instance, you'll probably talk to them. And let me just go back to App Center, view all, clear that out. Unless I don't know how to type McGraw-Hill. All right, here's one, Sage. That was really weird. So I'll probably talk to my sales rep when I'm doing this and click on the app I want to add, click Add App, and then I might have a couple fields to fill out here. So the name, if nothing else. You might also see fields for a consumer key or a shared secret. Those are things that your sales rep would have access to, just to make sure that you're actually, paying for the thing that you want to add. Just because it shows up as an app here does not mean that it's necessarily free automatically, although some of those things are free from the people that made them. Once that app is connected, though, and the whole reason we go through this is that on the publisher side, it can connect to whatever course you built or developed, and all those activities will then sync back into your Canvas course, so that when students go and do an activity, it shows up in your gradebook and everything actually starts matching up. But you just come here to the app section to do that. All right, any questions about apps or external content or publishers? All right, that's sounding like a no. Mike says no in chat. So that is everything with Module 5. We did it. Congratulations. See, that was really fast and easy, right? So let's go ahead and slide on over to Module 6 now. So Module 6 is that sort of best practices. How do I take advantage of Canvas to really develop my course into what I want, and how do I use all these building blocks now? So we'll be looking at what makes a good, useful homepage for students. We'll also be looking at some ways of structuring a course overall. We're going to look at some design terms and concepts, and then we're going to look at some examples of courses that apply those design concepts to mostly for online, but honestly the principles can apply equally to face-to-face, and then we'll sort of tie it all together with that. Then the last thing we'll look at is different resources that you have available if you are, it's like 3 months from now and these workshops are a distant memory and you need some help there. We want to show you where you can get that help. All right, so let's dig in. First off is I want to bring up the whiteboard. Let me do that. Let me do that. And that. All right, so can everyone see the whiteboard right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool, and we just lost Mike. I don't know if that was intentional or not. Well, we'll go ahead, we'll carry on, and we'll see if Mike shows back up. Let me just pause that one more time. All right. if I could type homepage. All right, so thinking about the very first thing that your students see when they go into your course, that's going to be the homepage. I know in Blackboard, people would sometimes use things like announcements, or they would have like some sort of like welcome letter, things like that. What I'd like for you to do, if it's okay, is just on this whiteboard, type out some of the things that for you go into an effective homepage. Like, what do you think should be on a good homepage? All right.
Where can I type?
Oh yeah, so do you see that green bar at the top of your screen again?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, does it say like annotate options or whiteboard options next to that?
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Mike is back. Welcome back, Mike.
So go to annotate.
Yeah, go to annotate, and then you'll get those annotation options.
Okay.
So Mike, what I was just asking people to do is on this whiteboard, just go ahead and type up some of the things that for you, hey, that's all right, Mike, it happens. But just type up some of the things that for you make for an effective homepage for course design. To get to the ability to type, all you need to do is look at the top of your screen right now, and next to the green bar is a thing that says annotate or annotate options, and clicking that should give you some controls to write on this whiteboard. And if people are having issues, please let me know. That's all right.
Do I have to choose something?
Yeah, so do you see like select and text and draw?
Yes.
If you click text, you're going to get the ability to click somewhere and then start typing.
Okay, got it.
And I'm going to take mine and just make it look a little different. That way it doesn't get lost with all the others. All right, so we've got clear and easy to navigate. There's a photo or banner that looks professional. Hey, you do want to look professional. You don't want to look crazy. Welcome video, that can be really great too. Yeah, okay. Cool, I'll just give 1 or 2 more minutes to give people a chance for that. Overview of the course, all right. Saying hello to students, that's also a great idea. You should probably say, hi, I'm a human being. That can be good. Okay, so Mike put in chat, introduce yourself and the students. I'm just gonna add that up to the board here. Great. All right, so I think that's all 3 of us. Cool. So what I'd like to do next is I'd like you to go back to those annotation tools, and to the right of text is the word draw. And I'd just like you to click that, and then I'd like you to sort of do this with my next question, which is out of the things that are on this board here, which would you still want on the home page 10 or 11 weeks into the course? Right? I want you to go and just circle the ones that you'd actually still want on the home page 10 weeks into the course. A photo or banner? Yes, I like that idea. It should still, that's fair. It should still be clear and easy to navigate on week 11. Hopefully you don't just go in and switch some stuff up just because you're feeling feisty halfway through. Okay, I noticed that we're not circling the other three. So welcome to students or overview, a welcome video or introduction. Oh, so we do want those in week 11. Never mind. All right. It looks like we lost clear and easy to navigate. So are we changing our mind about clear and easy to navigate? I should point out that if you want to take your circle and move it, to the left of that text option is a little select button, and you can click that to drag things around on this whiteboard if it's not quite where you want it. All right, so there are no more changes happening. So this is kind of the list we're working with. So some things with the homepage is that, hey, you do kind of want it to look professional. You want it to look aesthetic. You do want it to look clear and easy to navigate. And at least at the beginning, it's really good to have some sort of introduction right up at the start of your course. Once you're at week 10 or 11, they probably don't need to be introduced again. So it kind of makes sense why some of these others aren't being circled here, like a welcome video or introduce yourself, because, well, they have been welcomed. You know, it's like if you invited someone over to your home, you don't welcome them into each room of your house. Once they're in your house, they're probably good to not be introduced again and again and again. Some things that they do need on that homepage are like things that are due that week, what they need to do next, resources to do those things next. Those things can actually be really helpful on a homepage. So I just wanted to go through that because I was curious what your thoughts were. All right, let me go ahead and come back to my screen. Let me take that down. And let me bring this back up. So one of the things that you want to think about with your course is, what is the first thing a student is going to see? How is that going to be helpful to a student? How is it going to explain what the course is doing? And sometimes the homepage doesn't have to be static to accomplish that, right? It doesn't have to be locked into one way of doing it. Let me come over here to modules for a moment. Let me scroll down over here. So if we look, I'm just going to jump down to design concepts for a moment. We're going to talk about some of these principles that sort of come into play when you're thinking about developing your course. So I'm in Module 6, Design Concepts in Canvas 101 right now. So when we talk about these concepts, Canvas is borrowing a lot of its ideas and language from web design, like modern web design. If you thought about Blackboard, it was just folders inside folders inside folders, and it's really more comparable to something like Finder on a Mac or File Explorer on a Windows computer, right? It's giving you places to put things, and then you can tell the students to go there. Canvas is actually thinking about the fact that it's trying to help teach these things. So what it does with your information is going to look a little different. One concept that Canvas really tries to think about is this idea of user experience. So user experience goes back to that notion of like having clear and easy navigation. You know, does the course make sense, and is it easy to get where I need to go to do that? Are things named intuitively? Is it easy to read? What is the actual fact of me as a person going through your course and clicking through it and navigating it? Or if you're asking the question, what does it actually look like when a student tries to navigate your course? Depending on that navigation, it can actively help or hinder the learning that you're trying to accomplish. So one of the things I do is I'm also a grad student at the University of Kentucky right now. So I take online classes after work. And there was just a situation where it was an 8-week online course, so it moves very quickly. And none of the instructions were with the assignments themselves. So for me to do a task, I needed to go see what assignment was due. So I'd go to the assignment. Then I need to go to the syllabus and get some instructions. And then I need to go to the files area to get some of those things to do those instructions. And by the time I'm ready to start working on the assignment, I've had to navigate to 3 or 4 different areas of this course just to figure out what I'm supposed to do. And for me, that wasn't a great experience. You know, I got home from work. I don't want to go on a scavenger hunt just to figure out what I'm being asked to do. So when you're thinking about Canvas design, it's really easy now to just put all of those things together in one spot, like on the front page of the assignment itself. Thinking about the names that you give your files and your tests and exams and assignments. If you call it something like, I think the example I have here is weekly refs SBR17.docx. That isn't quite as clear as maybe, week 7 study guide or week 5 reference sheet, something where it's organized on the same way that you've explained the class organization to me, where I can actually read it and understand what's going on. Those kinds of things can be really, really helpful. When you're thinking about designing your course, and when I think about designing courses, one question that I ask myself a lot is, how would I narrate someone doing a particular task here? What are the tasks I want them to do, and how would I actually describe that process as it was happening? Would I say something like, the student clicks on the home page, they're given 6 buttons, and they click the button for week 3. They look at the week 3 task list and click the link for the first assignment. Is that the process? Or is the process, a student goes to the home page, scrolls down to week 3, and clicks the link to the week 3 assignment that I have? Thinking about those steps can make sure that you're actually organizing them in a way that makes sense for a user, instead of just organizing them in a way that makes sense as like files and structure. All right, any questions about user experience? Or any comments, ideas, haikus, things like that? Mike says, good stuff, great. And just to point out, if you don't want to come on mic, you can use the chat that is also available for everyone. Mike is taking very good advantage of that. All right, so the next sort of design concept is information architecture. So this sort of picks up right where user experience leaves off. Information architecture is, how are you structuring and storing your stuff? On a computer, that goes back to Finder or File Explorer, depending on Mac or PC. Literally, where are your files going and how are they being kept together? Information architecture is typically put up in contrast to navigation, because generally, information architecture does not make good navigation. Saying it another way that you store your stuff is not necessarily the best way to experience your stuff. And for course design, we really want to make sure that we're considering how the student experiences it, not necessarily how I store it for my benefit as an expert. A great comparison that Jessica, who's in some of the other workshops you've been in, uses that I really love is, imagine that you're teaching a class and as an instructor, you just drag a file cabinet from your office into the middle of the room and say, there you go, there's all the stuff. It's in folders, it's organized, have at it. How would that be a bad learning experience for your students if they just had to go through that file cabinet?
Very bad.
Why? What's wrong? It's all there. It's all labeled.
It's all there, but it's going to take, like you said before, it's going to take them forever. They're going to be so frustrated that they have to go through everything.
Yeah. So Mike says it's not easily accessed. Barbara says it's frustrating. And I sometimes get people who say, well, they're adults, so they should figure it out. But the truth is, whether adults or not, if you're frustrated, you are not as effective as a learner, right? Cognitively, you are distracted, even if you can put on your big boy, big girl pants and take care of it. So that's just something to think about. In Canvas, the information architecture are these links over here in the course navigation. It's the files area, the pages area, the quizzes area. In general, I would strongly, strongly, strongly encourage you to come to this page and think about which links you actually need for them to use. You probably don't need most of these, and that's all right. They're for your benefit, not necessarily your students' benefit. All right, the third idea is cognitive load. So cognitive load is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. It's probably my favorite of the three. Has anyone already worked with cognitive load or done stuff with cognitive load, studied it, familiar with it?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't
Mike
think
says,
so either.
All right, I'll hold on to no. All right, that's fine. So cognitive load. Here's a great example of it that I really, really like. Who's been driving, and you've been driving somewhere that you've never been before, and there's a certain street that you need to turn right on, and you're looking for that street, you're really paying attention. What do you typically do when you're driving and you really need to pay attention? What helps you pay attention more when you're driving?
Signs?
Look at the signs. Yeah, yeah. For me, I probably use Siri on my phone because I'm bad at navigation and I just get lost all the time. Has anyone turned down the radio while they're looking for a sign?
Yes.
Well, why would you do that? Why did you turn down the radio?
Too many distractions. I know it sounds silly, but it's like it helps you to concentrate in some way, you know, isn't it amazing?
Yeah, even though your ear, what's going in your ears should have nothing to do with going in your eyeballs, right? But that is cognitive load. Yeah, Mike says stop conversations as well. I've definitely been like, shh, I need to find this. Hold on, wait a minute. That's cognitive load. Your brain has a finite amount of cognitive capacity, and all the things that go into your brain, regardless of where they're coming from, eat up that cognitive capacity. You know, just imagine that there was a strobe light behind me and I was crashing cymbals the whole time I was talking. Even though, you know, some of those things really have nothing to do with the information coming out of my mouth, it would literally be more challenging to process that information, even setting aside the question of, well, that's obnoxious and weird. Cognitive load is thinking about what are all the stimuli that I'm giving to a student at once, and which of those stimuli are actually germane to learning, and which of the stimuli just aren't germane to learning at all. And so there are lots of interesting things that come up with cognitive load. For instance, and this is one of the ones that sounds a little weirder, kind of like turning down the radio, is that you'll see some instructors who put lots of graphic, like they'll have a PowerPoint, and there's like an image on every single slide, and some of them are animated and some of them are cute. And from a perspective of cognitive load and assessing transfer skills, those images actually detract from the learning experience. And I can say this because there was a study done. His name is John Mayer, and he's an instructional design guy. That's what he does, and he studies cognitive load. He had the same set of information, one with interesting pictures that didn't convey information but that were like cool looking, and then the same information without any pictures. And he gave them to sets of learners, and then he would do a test on their transfer capacity to see how much they retained. The people with the boring information performed better on those tests than the people with the pretty exciting information. Part of that comes back to this idea of cognitive load. Although they were excited and engaged by those images didn't help them actually learn the content better. So just keep that in mind. To me, that's like a really great example of thinking about what am I giving to the student and how is it connecting to what I want them to learn. I hope that you don't take away from that I'm saying you should never put images in any of your stuff. I am not saying that. I'm not saying don't use a banner. I was an art kid, right? I did painting. I love images. I love pretty things. I do think that it presents an opportunity to us, though, to find a way to make the images relevant and salient to the content that you're talking about. So maybe the cool image also is is a visualization of some concept that you're describing. Maybe it's a timeline showing a progression for some sort of a concept or a process that you're talking about. There's going to be a way to make it relevant so it's not just cool looking, it's also reinforcing the concepts. Cognitive load goes beyond images though. Cognitive load talks about, how much is on a page at once. For instance, if all this text were the same font size and all bold, it would literally be harder to read than if it were broken up like this. Taking advantage of headers, breaking up your text with images, those things don't just make it look cooler, they literally make it easier to process from a cognitive perspective. That was weird. That was a weird message I got. Sorry, that had nothing to do with y'all. Don't worry about it. But yeah, that's cognitive load in a nutshell. Are there any sort of questions or thoughts about cognitive load, or maybe specific situations that you might be wondering about?
No, it makes good sense.
I feel like I have cognitive load after this week.
From all these workshops, right?
Yes.
No, I feel you there, definitely. All right, so with those three concepts out of the way, what I'd like to do is I want to be quiet for another moment, and I want to give you a chance to look at, sort of like talk about and apply these concepts. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to actually go to Canvas 101. I'm going to stop sharing in just a moment, but I want you to go to Canvas 101, and actually open up Module 3 in Canvas 101, which is what I've got on my screen right now. And I'm going to ask you to think about how we designed Canvas 101 and how well it lines up with goals of creating a good user experience, of creating clear navigation, of managing cognitive load, some of these things we've been talking about. Can everyone get to Canvas 101 okay? Here, I might need to stop sharing if I'm taking up your screen. I think when I share, it goes into full screen, so. Sure thing, Mike.
I'm not sure how to get there.
Okay, do you have Canvas open right now?
No.
Okay, so let's go. Do you know how to get into Canvas?
I think I had a little trouble yesterday too.
Okay, do you see the address bar at the top of a browser right now?
Yeah.
So just type in nku.instructure.com.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Yeah, that's nku.instructure, so like inside a building, structure.com.
Okay. I'm at dashboard.
Yeah, and then do you see Canvas 101 on your dashboard?
Yes, Canvas for instructors.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
All right, so what I'm gonna do is actually, I'm gonna shut up for the next 5 minutes. I wanna give you all a chance to look at Module 3. It's content you've already seen before, so it's just talking about assignments and quizzes, grades, and feedback. Nothing new there, but think about it from a design perspective now. After 5 minutes, I'm gonna ask you, and probably have you put it on the whiteboard, you know, what are things that you like or wanna keep the same, and what are things that you would change or do differently? All right, anything I can clear up before I start the 5 minutes? It is sounding like a no. All right, so I'll see you all in 5 minutes. All right, so that's been about 5 minutes. Thank you for taking the time to look at that course. I'd be really interested in hearing your thoughts now. Let's start with Kelly. Kelly, in your opinion, what are some things that you think actually work well in Canvas 101, or some things that you would do differently?
Well, I like how it is all spaced, so there's enough white space on the page so it doesn't feel like information overload. I like how it's numbered. I like how it has different size font. I do love having the image there. I think the one thing that might be a little confusing is the actual image inside the assessments, quizzes, grades, and feedback. It kind of has a greenish kind of shimmer. I don't know if it's with the contrast or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, somewhere with the very top, how we have those kind of bubble letters and the paintbrush or something is inside there.
Yeah.
With that image, that feels a little distracting.
Oh, fair enough. Okay.
But I love the image itself. I love how I know where to navigate on the bottom of the page too.
Okay. So anything else that you do differently that you might, if you were building the course, have structured in a different way?
No, actually, I even like how you can do that, you know, where you are within the module itself too.
Okay. Cool. Well, that was very flattering. Thank you. That was very kind. All right. Let's go to Mike. Mike, in your opinion, what are some things that you would do or that you liked and some things that you do differently? And if you want to type in chat, Mike, that's fine too. No, that's okay, Mike. I figured that you just put it in chat. So Mike says, I like the decision tree tends to be one of two choices rather than multiple options. Okay, so kind of like when you are navigating, sounds like when you're saying when you navigate the course, there's not like there's like 3 million different ways to go. It's just you can go here or here, and you get to pick one. Clear navigation, definitely. All right, so Mike, anything that you would do differently? So similar kind of feedback that the images for the backgrounds of things like the banner are too complex. Okay, fair enough. All right, let's ask Barbara. So Barbara, what do you like? What would you do differently?
Everything.
Oh, for which one? Scrap the whole thing.
No, I feel like I learned Blackboard by default and really never, and just then you're kind of embedded in it with all your courses and you really don't take the time to make the changes. Mm-hmm. And while this is terrifying, I think that everything needs to be changed from my perspective, from what I do. Okay. Blackboard taught me to be online, for online teaching, taught me that I really needed to be clear in my instructions and help to students. And I see that I still have a long way to go for that. And I think Canvas will help that immensely in terms of navigation and in terms of having everything in one place for students. So exactly what you said, they don't have to go on a scavenger hunt for everything. Because I think I have had that too much by ignorance, really, and and not really taking the time to refine Blackboard. And this, as I said, I find this extremely terrifying, but also exciting that it can improve the ability to communicate with students and to help them really facilitate an online class.
Definitely. So it sounds like what you're saying is doing this is showing lots of things that you may want to change for yourself, right?
And for students, definitely for students. Okay. Yes.
So it's not so much that you, when you first said it, I thought you were saying that you didn't like any part of Canvas 101.
No,
all of it. I was like,
faulty communication.
That's okay. All right. So is there anything in Canvas 101 that you think could be improved on, though?
I think that I'm still in cognitive.
All right. You're like, nope, that's too much. It's course, I can live with that. That's good. All right. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I think that's really good feedback from everyone. One of the really interesting parts about this little thing is that, I've done this workshop a number of times and I ask it every time, but the way I've asked it has changed from workshop to workshop. So this time, I'll just review what I did in a very specific way. I went to the home screen and I got everyone there, or tried to, and then I had everyone click this button to take us directly to Module 3, which brought us to this page. And this is one of the ways that I've presented this question. Typically when I do this, people will start here and they will click start the module. And also let me just say the way these buttons are organized is embarrassing to me, and it's on the list of things that I want to fix for myself. But they'll click start the module or they'll click next, and they'll go through page by page and see the text, see the highlights, see the images, and kind of navigate it that way. Another way that I've presented this exact same question is I've said to everyone, hey, please go to modules, and then please go all the way down to module 3, and then same thing, I go away for 5 minutes and give them a chance to look at it. When I do that, the feedback is very different. People starting here say, oh my gosh, this page is crazy to look at. There are so many pages. This is a cognitive load issue. It's just overwhelming. And I agree with them. I think that this is perhaps one of the chief criticisms for Canvas 101, that if you're looking at the modules page, this is a whole lot to look at. Now there's a trade-off, right? Because this modules page is as long as it is, any one page inside this module is much more manageable, right? If I go to points and submission, it is only about points and submission, and it's not a lot to look at once. But you can even see here down at the graphic at the bottom, there's 21 pages to this module, not including the assignment and the quiz that we built in as sort of like a summative checkpoints at each step. So it's a long module. And that's kind of the question, you know, how much do you chunk the content together on one page versus how much do you break it up, and so that each page has less on it, but the module itself is longer overall. There are also some points that make Canvas 101 different from other courses that mean that you might not have to worry about the same kinds of problems. For instance, we don't have a textbook, so any reading we want you to do, we have to put into this course for you. We can't just say, go read a chapter or two. No, it's all got to be here. We also intentionally designed Canvas 101 so that people could jump to whichever module they wanted immediately and use it as a resource, in addition to also being a self-guided learning experience. So we tried to have the best of both worlds, and maybe in some ways we accomplished that, and maybe in some ways we didn't accomplish that. But now that you've looked at Canvas 101 and Module 3, I want to show you some alternative ways that Module 3 could have been done. So here we've got the module with content pages. That's what those little folded paper icons are. And then at the end of each lesson, an assignment, which is the pencil, or a quiz, which is that little rocket ship. Here is Module 3 without any content pages whatsoever. So it's the same course. There's just no content pages in it now. Everything is replaced by a file, or if you're thinking about a textbook, by reading from a textbook. And so it's a little different. If I click on the first link, it's going to show me a PDF. And I've had to work very hard to figure out the best way to abbreviate assignment. ASSG is the best one I can think of. But here I've got this PDF with all the same content that I could have gotten from the original Module 3. And then next to that is the assignment that was at the end of the first lesson in Module 3. And next to that is the beginning of the next lesson about grades. Again, all the same content is there. And then next to that is the summative check with a knowledge check here. In your opinion, does this fix any problems, or does this create new problems in Canvas 101 doing it this way?
It looks a little bit more like information overload.
So you find this to be more overloading than the other one?
I find it less overload.
Okay, so we got one each way. Kelly, could you talk about why it seems like more overload to you?
Do you mean this page here, or just compared to the images you showed us before?
Oh yeah, not the images specifically, just how the content's organized.
Okay, no, this is far better than going through PDFs, of course.
Okay, all right. Barbara, what were you thinking? Why is this less intimidating or less overloading to you?
No one wants to read, especially students, and if they have to go through that long list of that content, they would be frustrated again and give up. Some students would give up immediately. This is much more concise.
Okay, definitely. Does it create any problems? I don't know that it does. I'm not fishing for an answer. I'm just curious.
Possibly.
Yeah? Are you thinking of one in particular?
Because again, once they have to get into each one of those, there still is a lot of reading material, and we know our students are not crazy about reading.
Sure. Yeah, reading sucks for people.
But it looks like it's organized well.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, kind of going to cognitive load, Barbara, you hit on a really important point. Although the other way of organizing the module is big and a lot, and like Mike is saying in chat, it can be overwhelming if all the sections are shown at once. The content's also chunked really well, and that's another cognitive load strategy, chunking content. So a student can just jump to one point of content. Organized like this, the module view looks great, but this content isn't really chunked at all. They're just getting the whole lesson all at one go, and it's kind of up to them to decide when to stop. Some other things that Mike has said in chat are just that the first version of the module, where everything's on a separate page, is great for like initial learning stuff. And then the module version that we're looking at here, where it's a little more compact, can be useful for specific sections. It might not be as visually appealing either. So I think those are all valid criticisms and points in favor and against the style. Let's look at another way of doing Module 3. So instead of getting rid of all the pages, what if we got rid of all the modules? So if I go here, I've got one content page with all of the same information linked to it that Module 3 did. We can see here that we've got that assignments and quizzes reading section, and then the assignment for lesson 1, then the next reading section, and then the quiz for lesson 2, and then a resource that we link to. It's got the same instruction area and a list of the objectives as well. So same question, what does this fix or what does this break? Mike is like, I love this version. Mike, why do you love this version? It's clear, okay. Yeah, there's really not a place to get lost. It's just, this is what it is. It's all right here. It's not overwhelming.
I think students would like this because it gives them clear directions, what to do. That's the first thing that they're going to check out is what to do. What do I have to do?
Yeah.
And it's listed right there that they have to do. I think the module objectives are things that students might even ignore. They don't have to read those. They really have to read what to do.
That's a very fair point. If I know that, as a student, typically after work, when I get down to doing my homework, I was like, okay, what do I have to do? Where is it? All right, I did it. Goodbye. I pretty much just, I zip in, I do what I'm supposed to, and I zip back out, and I go make dinner or something like that. So yeah, I think that's really important. That's how students are going to navigate. Does this cause any problems doing it like this? Or maybe not problems, but do you lose anything? Maybe it's not as visually appealing as what Mike is saying, definitely. I suppose there's room for like a cute little banner at the top if you want that. Sure. Now, what I've seen some instructors do is they'll actually do a page like this for every week. And then at the beginning of each week, they'll swap out the home page so that this is the thing a student sees when they first go into the course. And I think that is kind of interesting. The home page, it's always relevant. Only the things they need to do are on the home page, which I love. I think it could also cause some issues too, because let's say a student needs to go back a week that they missed. That gets a lot harder if the home page is always the current week that they're on. Or if you ever want a student to work ahead, that's a lot more challenging because they can only see what they have to do this week. But if you're okay with just keeping them all together and manually addressing, catching students up, this could be a great solution for what the home page of your course looks like potentially. Mike also says it's great that you don't have to scroll to find stuff and that the home page is current. That's another thing. There's very little scrolling required to see all this. I can just sort of see it all in one spot, and that's great. All right, so there is yet another way. Oh, wait, there's more. There's another way of organizing this. Let's say that you are an announcement fiend and you just love making announcements. If you could also put all of this in an announcement, and that would work too. So here's basically that same content just done as an announcement. It works, if you send out a lot of announcements, that's fine. I am a little scared of trying to pin it all on my announcements and trying to make announcements run the structure of the course. Sort of another thing that I'd like to think about when I'm working on course design is I like to ask myself, how long would this course function if the instructor, got abducted by aliens or, like vanished one day? How long would the course continue to function and students would continue to do the work if this instructor wasn't actually actively maintaining it? I feel like for a lot of people, the course would stop functioning about a week in once students had to wait on another announcement to tell them what they needed to do. From my perspective, that really isn't a robust course design because it's tying the teacher down a lot into maintaining and keeping things spinning. Whereas if you actually build it out and like take the time to put the resources where they make sense so that students don't need you to point them there, that frees you up to do a lot of the actual like teaching. You know, it frees up your announcements so you can actually send things that are timely and relevant instead of having to worry about holding all the pieces together yourself. That's just a perspective that I have. All right, and the whole point of this whole section is to show you there are many, many ways up the mountain. There are many ways to organize this content, and all of them have potential applicability. What I'd like to do with all this and these ideas is show you a course that I think does implement them pretty well. This course is a completely online course. It's designed as an 8-week course for group work. It's for the College of Business, so this instructor takes his students and he breaks them up into between 7 to 10 work groups that act as like a team of managers for a made-up company where they have to make decisions each week and they're collaborating. So let me show you that. So this is the course, and I'm going to hop into student view so you can see it exactly as a student would. To do that, I'm going to the right side of the home screen and clicking student view. All right, so let me X that out. So this is MGT 205 when a student signs in for the very first time. So what are some things that you notice, that you like, or maybe that you don't like when you see this course?
I love that it says start here. And I also like how things are grayed out so that I know there's just one task for me to do right now.
Okay. Yeah, there's not a lot of ways to go around. There's the button that you can click that says start here, and there's all these buttons that you can't click that are further down the page. All right. Anything else that you notice that works, that doesn't work? Visually, it's not as pizzazzy. That is fair, Mike. Yep.
It seems very impersonal.
It feels impersonal. Could you elaborate on that?
Where's the professor? It just seems just there.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Well, let's click in. We're going to go ahead and just work through the first little section just to open up the rest of the course. As has been pointed out, a lot of the course is locked down just to funnel students in a very specific direction. So let's start here. All right, so on the Start Here page, it's got some of those things that we talked about as being good for a home page. He has an introduction where he talks to the students about what he wants. He's got a little face of himself over here, a little picture. He's got some goals for the course overall and some graphics and some visuals to help with that. One of the big concerns that he had was making sure that students had resources for Canvas, since it was the first time this would be taught in Canvas and be really brand new. Fortunately, students tend to not have a lot of questions, but he wanted to have this resource here. So that's kind of what's on his Start Here page. If here, let me just make the screen a little bigger. There we go. So if I click next, he also wanted to make sure students were comfortable navigating the course. So one thing that I worked with him on was just explaining what the links in the course navigation were and what the icons on that modules page were. As you can see, the modules page is his home page. So these icons become a lot more important in terms of distinguishing what the different activities are. Now he's also named them like quiz, discussion board, so that helps too. But this just reinforces what's happening on the modules page. All right, so far we've looked at 2 pages. I'm gonna go back to the home screen. Maybe as a student, that's as far as I got, and then I, tootled off and did something else. When I come back to the home screen, you can see that it's actually tracking what I've looked at and what the next thing for me to click is. So let's go to that. One thing that is really helpful, especially for online classes, I think, is sort of like a module 0 or a welcome module, where you're really laying out some of the basic things you need students to understand. For instance, what the goals of the class are, how to navigate, where resources are. In this case, he has that semester-long project where they act like managers. So he has a page where he's written out all this stuff about that company that they're going to pretend to run for the duration of the semester. And he lays that out right at the beginning of the course. He also has taken some specific parts of the syllabus that are really important that he wants to drive home that they have to do. For instance, since this is very discussion board heavy, he really talks a lot about what he wants in those discussion boards. Since he doesn't accept late work, he makes it a point to talk about that on this page. And he just copy and pasted this out of the syllabus. And then finally, he locks the whole thing with an intro quiz. And I think that this is one of the other things that is really effective for an online course. And honestly, I think it could be helpful for face-to-face courses too. This intro quiz is set up so that until a student gets 100% on it, the rest of the course doesn't open up. So a student is stuck here until they actually get 5 out of 5 right. And then the rest of the course opens up. And for him, he wants it so they can work ahead. So once they get this, the entire course opens up for a student so they can just work as far ahead as they want to. But let's go ahead and just do this quiz. It isn't very challenging. I think we can get it. I'm going to click Take the Quiz. And question 1, have I read the syllabus? Yes, I have. Do I understand there's no late work? Yes, I do. Do I understand that I have to turn in everything by Sunday and that I have to be very specific with what my first post in a discussion board is? Yep. And do I understand I need to make substantive, thoughtful contributions? Yes. And then do I understand that I can't cheat on my discussion boards by posting something like test or can anyone see this? So that's it. It is not like a scavenger hunt. It's almost like a contract that you're making the student sign before they go on. That way you can point to where they agreed that no late work will be accepted later on if you need to. All right, let me submit that. Hey, I got 100 on it, yay. But you can see students can take it an unlimited number of times just because we want to make them agree before anything else happens. So now when I go back to home, the rest of the course is open. And then here's how he's managed his modules. Every module takes a really basic similar structure. There's an overview each week where he talks about what they have to do. There's some visually appealing stuff, and he sort of lays out this is what's happening. And then all of the videos and documents and PDFs and websites he wants them to visit, he puts on a second page called materials, or you could put it like a learning resources. It could be called that too. But anything he wants them to do gets its own page. And then after that, it's all the assignments that he said in the to-do list. And every week just cranks out that similar structure. Overview of what you got to do, resources to do it, and then the tasks you're supposed to do. And you can also see over here, pretty much everything is disabled except for those 4 links: home, syllabus, announcements, and grades. All right, any other thoughts, questions, ideas? Funny jokes, I don't know. Anything with this that you're interested in seeing or want to talk about?
No, I think it's really impressive. I did have a question. It might be completely off topic right now.
That's okay.
But since he really relies on discussion boards, I was thinking about doing the same. Are they as easily navigable as this is, where it's clear where every thread would be or anything like that?
Yeah, so that's actually a really great question, because Canvas doesn't really use threads the way that Blackboard does. So all of his discussion boards are group discussion boards. If you go to one of them, like let's go to the first real assignment they have to do. He's got the instructions laid out here, and for each group, they only see their group's stuff when they come here. So they won't see anything from the other groups. But beneath his whole prompt, it's kind of like Facebook. You know, this is his Facebook post, and then every student that replies is replying to his post, and then students can also reply to each other's replies. Using these buttons, you can collapse it so you just see the top level replies, and you can expand it so you see all the responses to those replies too. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes, it does. They, since it's creative writing, they have to read every single person's creative piece and comment on every single person's piece.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering if they'll be able to easily get to each student's posting like they were able to in Blackboard.
As long as they use these buttons, they should be able to, yeah. I think we also talked about using peer review maybe as an option for that too, right?
Yeah, I'm going back and forth with that. So
That's fair. Yeah. I would maybe in your intro document or introduction explain using these buttons to make that manageable. That way they can effectively use that.
thank you.
Definitely. So Mike says, I still got a lot of work to do on courses. Hey, course design is an unending, always in process activity. So that's fine. But I guess here, like the reason to show this is because although this does look plain and it does look boring, the job of this area really isn't to be exciting, right? It's just to point the student where they need to go. And then there's lots of opportunities once they're there to introduce that sort of fun, engaging, exciting stuff that you want to have in your course. All right, let me go ahead and leave student view and go back to home. To point out one of the other things that this course is doing to sort of lock it down like that, it's using this thing called adaptive release. And so I just want to show you the two parts of adaptive release. So at the beginning, it showed it so that a student had to do these things in order and it had to do all of them. Those are called requirements. To use requirements, all I'm doing is going to a module, clicking these three dots on the right, and clicking edit. And once I do that, I can see all of the requirements that I've set up for this particular module. So I've said they have to view, start here, they have to view, navigate the course, view this page, and then score at least this much on this quiz. And I've also checked off students must move through the requirements in sequential order. I could put these in any order I want, or I can make it so they could do it in any order they wanted to. That's another option. Instead of view item, I could also have mark as done. If I do that, there's even a little box on that page that pops up. The student checks off when they are ready. And then instead of score at least, I could also have submit the assignment. So maybe it's something where I don't want to make them get a certain score, because that could, like a student that doesn't do well could be locked out of content, but I want them to at least submit the assignment, say, before they see the answer sheet to that assignment. I have that option too. And those are all requirements. They happen with things inside a module. The other part of what this course does is it locks other modules behind this first module. So to finish Welcome to MGT 205, the requirements are to do each of these things. And the Welcome to MGT 205 is a prerequisite for the week 1 module. So Canvas says, okay, before week 1, they must do all of the requirements here. To set up those prerequisites, I'm still going to the module, I'm going to those three dots for that module, and I'm clicking edit again. And instead of adding requirements, I'm just picking a prerequisite. And I could pick any modules above the module I'm looking at as a prerequisite. So the order of the modules does matter. If you use adaptive release, you do not want to start dragging and moving your modules all around in your course, because that will mess with the adaptive release. All right, so that's the heady, big concept, like, oh, how do I use all the pieces? The next little bit's going to be easier. It's just some, let me close that out. It's going to be some just more straightforward suggestions and things that you can use. It's called Work Smarter. All right, so one little idea that can be helpful is to keep track of changes and ideas. So throughout the semester, you're going to find things that you want to be different, that you want to update or modify at the end of the semester. I'd encourage you to write that down right when you think of it. If you try to wait till the end of the semester, it's going to be really hard to do. It's the end of the semester. There's final grades. Everything's on fire. It's crazy. Maybe make an unpublished module where you keep track. Or in each module that you have, put like an unpublished header or page with notes about what you want to fix in that module. That way at the end of the semester, you don't have to try to remember everything. You can just work through the list that you built for yourself, and then your course is all caught up and ready to use. Another suggestion is if you do want a homepage or you do just want like engaging visual content, you can actually use PowerPoint to do a lot of it. Now, I will say that before I look like a complete hypocrite, I know that Campus 101 actually has a static homepage, and I kind of just got done arguing for using the modules area as the homepage. So let me just lay that out. For Campus 101, since we wanted it to be sort of a decentralized resource, we didn't want to force a certain order on people. So that's kind of why we intentionally made a homepage. The University of Pennsylvania did a study last summer, though, and it was analyzing how students navigate Canvas. So they did a big user study, got a bunch of people together, and like tracked how they moved around the screen when performing certain tasks and then did interviews. And for them, they actually found that students prefer using the modules area as their main navigation over other areas. And they prefer it by a factor of like 11%, I think. So it's a noticeable leader compared to the other options. So that's where I'm pulling that information from. Anyway, if you want to actually make infographics, buttons, banners, cool diagrams, all of it can be done in PowerPoint, and you're not tied to using the rectangle of a PowerPoint slide. All of the images in Canvas 101 can be made in PowerPoint exactly as they are. And so that's an option that you have. If you're interested in learning more about making visual content, we've actually made a second resource that's all about how to make good-looking stuff. It's standalone, it's self-guided, there's no like workshop, it is way less content than Canvas 101. I'll just go ahead and show it to you if that's something you're interested in. So I'm gonna go here and open up Canvas 201. And so Canvas 201 is all about making visual content. You can see it's only 3 modules. It is much, much more manageable. But hopefully it also gives you some ideas for how to use those images. So hopefully like models incorporating images into a course in a way that's relevant and not increasing cognitive load unnecessarily. If you work through it, then there is this Put It All Together, which is sort of the gold mine. It's got tutorials that sort of use PowerPoint in increasing complexity. So each of these images is a link to a tutorial about how to make that image. Week 1 materials takes you to a tutorial about making that button. And the images start off kind of with something that maybe I'm not excited about, to increasing complexity, incorporating just more techniques, more strategies. That way you can make pretty much whatever you want. And if you want this, just let me know, I can add you to it, that's fine. If all this is way too much and you're like, no, Canvas is enough without me getting crazy with these buttons, then that's okay. You also have an option called, okay, Mike wants it, I will enroll you, sir, the Button Factory. So the Button Factory is just a website where you can quickly crank out a button and download it. It's a little more manageable, but if you just really need a button, this is another option that you have that we just found online. All right, and my final sort of work smarter tip is to anticipate student questions. So although we don't get a lot of student questions about Canvas, especially compared to Blackboard, if you're worried about students struggling with using the software, Canvas has 2 really great resources that you can rely on. The first is the Canvas Student Guide. So this connects to Instructure's website. Instructure is the company that makes Canvas, and this is the Bible of how do I use Canvas as a student. It's got a section for everything a student could ever possibly do. And beneath that, in question format, it has dozens and dozens of articles. Now, I don't know that I would share this link with a student. I would probably go in and find an article that I want them to have as a reference. Maybe for the first discussion board in the class, I might say, hey, if you're unsure how to use discussions, then I would maybe give them this link of how do I view and sort discussion replies as a student. Kelly talking about making sure they see all the posts. This might be a good article to share with them. That way they don't have to email you about it. Another resource that Canvas has available is their LMS video list. And these are all linked in Canvas 101 for you. Their LMS video list is a series of videos that Instructure themselves have made for both students and instructors about how to use Canvas. Now, when you go to Vimeo, which is the name of this website, there's a big old search bar in the upper right corner. Don't use that search bar. Please don't use it. It's not going to keep you in this list of LMS videos. It's going to search the entire website. If you look at this tiny little search bar right here, this one will actually keep you searching just Canvas's videos. So I can search like discussions, for instance. And now I'm seeing videos that they've created for discussions. So I could grab this video and I could embed it maybe as part of the intro quiz to the class. Here's a video about discussions. Do you agree that you feel comfortable with how to use discussions? Or maybe on the first discussion board, I put that as a resource available to them. That's an option that you have.
This is great.
Cool. All right, and then there is a quiz that we're not going to do because we're face-to-face, so we don't got to worry about it. Finally, we're going to talk about the resources that you have as an instructor. So still in Canvas 101, one resource you have is this sort of cheat sheet that we've put together. It's a PDF that lists 10 common elements or 10 common things that you were probably used to doing in Blackboard, and then what those things look like in Canvas now. And I've been asked if you can print it out. You can print it out. If you do that, though, these links will not work anymore. So these links point back to the Canvas website where they have lots of resources for you. So just keep that in mind. Another place where you can get help is the Help menu. And this picture is out of date, so I'm going to open up the current one. So in the Help menu, you're going to see Ask Your Instructor a Question. This is more for your students, but they can use that, and as long as they know what course they have a question about, they can submit their question, and Canvas will just send it to you. So the student doesn't really even have to know your contact information. As long as they can get to help and ask a question, they can get that to you. A resource that you might use, though, is search the Canvas guides. There is an instructor guide, just like there is a student guide. So if I open Search the Canvas guides, there's all these resources here. I'm just going to go to Canvas guides, and then I'm going to pick who I am. I'm going to pick instructor this time. And then here's the Bible of how do I Canvas as an instructor. Anytime I get asked a question that I don't know the answer to, this is exactly where I go. Because there's no like a magic well of knowledge that we're pulling from when we built this. We use these articles to figure out everything that we know about Canvas. So I'm not saying don't talk to us, please do. But if if it's like 11 at night and you're working and you're like, oh, it's too late to call, Jessica or Jade or Nick, well, maybe try coming here because it's exactly what I'm going to do when you ask me a question. Other resources that you have. This NKU faculty help page is a page on our website that we've pulled together that pulls out some of those articles in case you find that whole Bible, how do I Canvas, kind of overwhelming. This is a smaller resource than that. It's still got a lot of information. It's just not quite the full Canvas guide that you had over there. If it's an issue that you need to make a ticket for, Report a Problem is available to contact the NKU IT Help Desk. And finally, you can submit an idea if you're like, gosh darn it, I just wish Canvas did this one thing. You should tell Canvas that. Canvas makes it very easy to communicate these ideas. So if you click Submit a Feature Idea, it's going to open this thing called the Canvas Studio. And this is like the very last thing I want to show you in this workshop. One of the models with Blackboard was that it would update very infrequently. It might be on the order of years before you got to change to Blackboard. Canvas doesn't follow that model. Canvas updates, it does lots of small updates regularly, month by month by month. So lots of things are getting updated and refined. If you want to see what's coming, and that way you're not surprised, the Canvas Studio is where you can go to do that. So just by clicking Submit a Feature Idea here, this list is all of the things that are being worked on actively by Canvas right now. So they're improving the analytics the teachers have. They're working on their quizzing engine. They're improving the mobile apps for students and teachers. These are all things that you can go ahead and take a look at and see what's coming down the pipe. That way you can play with it in advance if you want to, or give feedback. I will say that I know for a fact, let's see, Analytics 2, gradebook enhancements, granular permissions, non-scoring rubrics, quizzes, and the apps, those are all things that are being worked on because the community has requested it. So to me, this says Canvas is very, very active and engaged with listening to what its users want. It's not going to implement every single idea. That would be insane. That'd be scary. But it does make a very clear effort to be transparent about what it's working on and meeting the needs of its users. If you decide that you have something that you would like Canvas to consider, just come up here and click Login. It uses your NKU information. So if you're already signed into Canvas, it should just load up for you and you won't even have to type anything. Although it's going to be slow to load because it knows that I'm working with 4 minutes. So we'll just give it a second here. Or it just won't load because I'm trying to demo it. Let's see if I can just go to the group a different way. So I'm just going to try to find a different way back to that page. I'll try logging in from here. All right, well, any day but today, when you click login, it just brings you back in. So let me just move on from that. But to submit an idea, you come up to this actions button, and where it says share space, once you're logged in, it'll say submit an idea. Let me just show you an idea that's already been submitted once before. You might want to come here and see if anyone else has already submitted the idea too, because like here's an idea that someone turned in. For each idea, it's got the title that that person made, and then it's got how many people have voted on it. All it takes is 100 votes up in order to get Canvas to form a serious response to it. If it gets 100 votes, Canvas will address whether it's feasible or not and potentially move on to trying to develop implementation for it. And so I voted this one down, but that's okay. And you can also see all the comments here. And I think that for a website about a learning management system, it's surprisingly active in terms of the feedback. Anytime you see this panda, that is an actual Canvas employee. So there's a lot of interactivity between us and the people actually making the software, which to me is great because we didn't get anything like that in Blackboard. It was so much more distant and so much less communicative. All right, that's everything I have. Are there any final questions, thoughts, rhymes, quips that you want to share, talk about?
No, thank you for everything.
All right, I'm glad you could come.
Thank you, Travis. I'm sure you'll be hearing from me.
All right, just so you know, Travis is just the account. My name's Nick.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Nick.
It says Travis under my face, so yeah. All right, well, I hope you all have a great day then.